Hi Year 12, welcome to our fourth and final video for economic growth. Today we're going to focus on sources and effects, and we're going to keep it fairly theoretical, and we'll go through the real application and contemporary information in class. So, sources we've already looked at when we've looked at those aggregate demand components and our drivers of economic growth, but we are going to have a bit more of a closer look at the theoretical effects of economic growth in Australia. Okay, I really love this cartoon, Australia's 5-year plan for the economy. Dear God, please may China's 5-year plan succeed. Now this is from June 2012, and we know that since then altering economic growth in China has had a fairly direct impact on Australia's economic growth as well, and the overall effects in the economy. So let's get started. When we're looking at the main sources or drivers of economic growth in Australia, we want to see positive growth in the major individual components. So we want to see increases in consumption. If we see increases in consumption, increases in investment, and a positive trade balance as well as government spending, we are going to hopefully see economic growth. So remember, consumption is spending by households and individuals. This is mainly influenced by the level of household disposable income. So the level of disposable income will directly influence the marginal propensity to consume, which will influence consumption, okay? You cannot exclude or forget about consumer confidence. Now, there are many banks that do surveys on this, so you can actually find data on consumer and business confidence, and this often links to that speculation and expectation within economies. So these factors are influenced by taxation. Okay, how much I earn every week is affected by how much the government taxes me. Okay, how much disposable income I have left over will depend on the interest rates that I am charged on my credit cards and my mortgages, and the general state of the economy will affect household consumption as well. Investment is spending by firms, so private business investment is influenced by the level of business profits, interest rates, and taxation. We know that business expectations and confidence, okay, are extremely influential in how much businesses invest, as well as the overall state of the economy. We all know what government spending is, so the level of government spending is largely influenced around the amount of tax, so it's very heavily influenced by the international business cycle. Okay, and remember, not all areas of government spending add to economic growth directly. Okay, so spending in infrastructure will affect economic growth directly, whereas spending on social security and welfare may not influence economic growth directly, but rather through a different component such as labour. Now, the last one, net exports, which is obviously X minus M, refers to the income from exports. Okay, remember, goods and services minus the expenditure of Australia on exports. So if exports are negative, okay, or our trade balance is negative, we will be detracting from economic growth, meaning we are sending more money overseas than what we are receiving into our Australian economy. However, if exports are positive, then they will add to economic growth, which is a good thing. So, I'm not going to go through this because this is the contemporary, but you have a sources of economic growth, contemporary information and data sheet. Can you please pause now, highlight this? I am giving you the data, okay? I'm giving you the data. You don't have to go find it. So pause, highlight, annotate that now, and when you're done, come back to the video. All right, we're now going to focus on effects. And economic growth can lead to a number of important benefits or limitations. And we're going to start off with the positives, the benefits. So generally, if we see high levels of economic growth, we have higher real per capita incomes and therefore an improvement in living standards, which you could obviously link to economic development. Okay, this can be achieved from increases in productivity and resource use. Higher real incomes allow for individuals to have more purchasing power. They have more money in their back pocket. They can then go spend that and increase their material standard of living, okay, through purchasing goods and services that improve their quality of life. Okay, so we're dealing with individuals there. We also know that higher levels of economic growth in Australia can also encourage higher levels of savings, even though Australia traditionally has not been that great at that. So when your income increases, because there is economic growth, there are both private and public sector benefits. So in the private sector, increases in real income will lead to a rise in the household savings ratio, with households able to reduce their level of debt and start to increase their savings for retirement. Now remember guys, the opposite of this will happen if economic growth is slower or declining. The next benefit we see is that higher levels of economic growth tend to lead to higher rates of productivity growth and technological progress, which is fantastic for the economy as a whole. This arises from more efficient resource use as producers are able to keep up with the use of technology, implement new innovations, and keep pace with the rising demand for goods and services. Now, when you see higher productivity, especially within your workforce, so those units of labour, you have increased labour productivity, this can also lead to an increased demand for labour. So if you know that your workers are becoming more skilled, more efficient, employers, businesses are going to start to say, well, we need more of those people. And by demanding more units of labour, they are actually helping to reduce the rate of unemployment within the labour market. So economic growth will affect the unemployment rate, You can't link them directly. You need to go through this process of showing how they are related, So that's that analysis, of showing how higher levels of economic growth can reduce unemployment. Now don't forget that labour is hopefully you said that word, a derived demand, So for the increased demand for goods and services, we will often see an increased demand for labour. So higher rates of economic growth, which result in employment creation, can lead to new entrants offering their labour. So we often see a higher participation rate and higher levels of employment when we have higher rates of economic growth. So they are relational. Economic growth may also create jobs for previously unemployed workers or underemployed workers. So don't forget, this is a really big problem in Australia, this underemployment. As lots of people may switch during periods of economic growth from part-time and casual to full-time jobs, which will help to reduce underemployment rates. Continuing on with the benefits, economic growth, which leads to higher real GDP, can increase taxation revenue for the government. And this is what we call the growth dividend. So the Australian government can use this additional taxation revenue. So people are earning higher incomes, therefore they're paying more personal income tax. Businesses are making more profit, hence they're paying more company tax. The government will then receive increased income through that increased taxation, and they can then reinvest this into social and economic infrastructure if they so choose, and will have the possibility to fund social security and welfare, supporting the aged, the sick and the low income, and we already know a fair bit about that. Another benefit, so you can see these benefits, there are quite a few of them, that higher levels of economic growth will contribute to business investment. And as I said, there are confidence surveys that prove this. As higher consumption spending can have an acceleration effect on net investment. So new investment in addition to the replacement of the depreciated capital. Economic growth does generally result in increase in real output, some of which may be exported to other countries. So export income can then be used to finance imports of consumers, capital and intermediate goods. And we will see the benefits, gained from this increased real output and through our net export balance. So you might be looking at international trades, meaning lower prices, higher output, more employment, economies of specializations, and overall increases in living standards for the domestic population. This is a funny one. Economic growth may also allow some resources to be released from current production for the protection of the environment. Theoretically, guys, let's be truly honest. Generally, during periods of economic growth, we actually see the depletion of our natural environment, not the protection of it. But one can only hope that the future will not be the same as the past. So, Another benefit may be that individuals have increased leisure time and that workers may trade off for extra hours as real incomes rise. This enables Australians to use leisure time to play sport, travel, and participate in voluntary community organisations. These interests have developed into growing service industries and new employment opportunities, such as increased employment in sport, recreation, travel, and tourism. So because individuals are earning real incomes that are increasing during periods of economic growth, so individuals are earning more money, they have more disposable income, they are more likely to travel, they are more likely to engage in a recreation activity or a sporting activity. And because there is increased demand for this, there is therefore new employment opportunities to fulfill that demand, okay? So they are relational. So the benefits of economic growth for Australia must be balanced against the costs. And one of the major costs is structural change as the economy grows over time. So economic growth should not be pursued as an end in itself, but as a process of the Australian economy achieving higher living standards. Now, economic growth is often the main goal if we're thinking, or the big goal that we look at. But in achieving economic growth and having, I suppose, a narrow viewpoint of that being the most important or the sole aim, you then are left with problems. Now, a problem experienced by both advanced and developing economies in pursuing high rates of economic growth is arguably and most importantly the damage to the natural environment. So pollution, deforestation, land degradation, waste management, all of that type of stuff. More natural resources are needed. So to produce more goods and services, more natural resources are needed, okay, to sustain this higher rate of economic growth. And we know that this will lead to the depletion of non-renewable and renewable resources. It will lead to increased pollution. It will lead to land degradation. And as a consequence, it will decline the environmental quality, okay? This happens all the time. I would argue more so now in developing economies than advanced because there is a lack of legislation and accountability and enforceability in those countries from their governments. A problem with economic growth is that we often see great technological and structural change, and this can lead to unemployment. So governments need to fund retraining schemes in order to reskill the structurally unemployed. So if you have 1 million people graduating from university in an area of employment that is no longer needed, well, they're going to end up being unemployed. So your labour, okay, and your training and your education needs to match your economy. And as economies are growing and changing due to, okay, these structural factors, your labour market needs to change to mirror that. And often the labour market and training is a little bit slow in keeping up with how economies are changing structurally. Often economic growth can lead to an overemphasis on materialism and consumerism, so the loss of traditional cultures and societies. We've seen this with lots of Indigenous societies around the world. And this is a very social perspective, okay, a very, very social perspective, maybe rather than a purely economic one. Okay, this, however, is quite economic. That economic growth may lead to a widening in inequality of the distribution of income. So I really like this picture, one man with all the wealth taking it all and many left without. So we have seen increasing income inequality throughout global economies as higher income groups become more concentrated. Progressive taxation, which is used here in Australia through personal income tax, can be used to reduce income inequality by taking more taxation off those that earn more and using that to fund social welfare and security payments for our low-income earners. This is a significant problem. We are going to focus on this in another set of videos later on. So know that the distribution of income and wealth does link to the level of economic growth. So another problem is that if you have excessive economic growth, especially very quick economic growth, it can lead to demand pull and cost push inflation. And there's another video that focuses solely on those later on. So as resources become scarce in relation to the increased demand in goods and services, economic growth might therefore conflict with the objective of price stability, and we're going to have a look at that. Okay, it can also conflict with full employment, as the technical processes and progress of that structural change in the economy may lead to structural unemployment. Okay. The other conflict that can happen, or the other issue when you have high rates of economic growth, is the balance with external stability. So as the economy increases its demand for imported goods, this can lead to an increase in our current account deficit and the level of foreign debt to finance the deficit. We've looked at that fairly extensively in topic 2, so you should be all over that. All right, that is the end of video 4, looking at sources and effects of economic growth. Hopefully you are ready to come into class, and we're going to have a really good look at the sources more specifically, and try and create some relationships between those effects. So the rest of this unit will be done in class as a small contemporary, so be ready for that. Thanks, Year 12.